Something extraordinary happened this week on Europe's southern border. Thousands of people crossed from Morocco into Spanish territory, not by boat across the Mediterranean, but by swimming around a border barrier separating Africa from the European Union. The images were dramatic, crowds of people moving through the streets, people emerging from the sea wearing flotation devices, police struggling to control the situation, and almost immediately the political debate exploded. Some described this as a security crisis, others described it as a humanitarian emergency. But beyond the political arguments lies a much bigger question. Why has this tiny Spanish city become one of the most important pressure points in Europe's migration debate? Because Ceuta is not just another border. It is the place where Africa physically meets Europe. And what happens here now could shape the future of European migration policy. So let's explore what actually happened. Ceuta is a small Spanish territory located on the northern coast of Africa, surrounded by Morocco. Together with Melilla, it represents the European Union's only land border within the African continent. The border itself is only around 8 kilometers long, but despite fences, barbed wires, cameras and security forces, it has repeatedly become a gateway into Europe for illegal migration. During this latest surge, thousands of illegal migrants crossed into Ceuta. Spanish media estimates between 2,000 and 3,000 people entered, while other mainstream media outlets like the BBC and CNN indicate that this could be as high as 49,000 people entering. Note that the actual population of Ceuta is only 85,000. Many crossed by sea. There were videos showing migrants using inflatable rings, wetsuits, diving fins, and other flotation devices. Others breached sections of the land border. The human cost was also severe. Reports indicate that several migrants died attempting the crossing. For Ceuta's 85,000 Spanish residents, the arrival of thousands of people within a short period has created enormous pressure on local services. Reception centres have become overwhelmed. Some migrants reportedly slept on the streets. Local officials warned that facilities for unaccompanied minors were operating far beyond capacity. So why Ceuta? The reason Ceuta matters is geography. For migrants seeking entry in Europe, there are several routes: the Mediterranean, the Canary Islands, the Balkans, and Ceuta and Melilla. But Ceuta has one unique feature. If you physically enter Ceuta, you have entered Spanish territory, and therefore you have entered the European Union. That makes it enormously attractive. The crossing is dangerous, but compared with journeys across the Mediterranean, some migrants see this as an opportunity worth taking. And unlike going on an inflatable boat across the Mediterranean in rough seas and far beyond capacity on little dinghy boats, this only involves just crossing a border via a fence. This is why the border in Ceuta has become such a symbolic battleground. So why does this happen now? The biggest question is, why now? And where does this go forward? There is no single confirmed answer, but several factors appear to have combined. First, there's social media mobilization. Reports indicate that Facebook groups, WhatsApp channels, and online communities helped organize the movement. People shared crossing routes, maps, equipment advice, and information about border conditions. Some groups reportedly had tens of thousands of members discussing possible crossings. The second reason is legal uncertainty. Spanish authorities have pointed to a recent court ruling concerning migrants who reach Ceuta by sea. The ruling limited immediate returns at sea, which means that migrants must go through legal procedures once they reach Spanish territory. Spanish and Moroccan officials argue that trafficking networks may have exploited the situation to encourage crossings. And third is economic pressure. Many migrants are motivated by economic opportunity. For many young people in North Africa, Europe represents higher wages, better employment prospects, a peaceful environment, and greater long-term opportunity. So then there is the Moroccan question, which is the most sensitive question. Was Morocco involved? The answer is complicated. During previous migration crises, Morocco has been accused of using migration pressure as a diplomatic tool against Spain. The most famous example was in 2021. Around 8,000 to 10,000 migrants entered Ceuta over a few days during a period of severe diplomatic tension between Madrid and Rabat. That crisis occurred after Spain provided medical treatment to Brahim Ghali, leader of the Polisario Front, a movement opposed by Morocco over the disputed territory of Western Sahara. However, this time the situation appears different. Moroccan authorities have said that they're cooperating with Spain. Spanish officials have also stated that Morocco is assisting in the managing the situation. The reality is that Morocco plays a crucial role. The EU relies heavily on Morocco to help control migration routes. In return, Morocco receives financial and political support from Europe. Migration management has become part of the broader relationship between Brussels, Madrid, and Rabat. In fact, Spain is one of the few countries that recognizes Moroccan sovereignty over the disputed region of Western Sahara. So let's move to the political explosion in Europe now. This crisis has quickly become very political. Spain's opposition accused Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez's government of failing to protect the border. Ceuta's regional president requested that Madrid declare a national emergency. The Spanish government rejected that request but announced military support for the civil guard. The crisis also triggered criticism from Italy and even France. Politicians from the neighbouring countries warned they could consider stronger border measures, including discussions around the Schengen system. Meanwhile, supporters of a more open migration policy argue that Europe faces a demographic challenge. Spain's government has argued that migration can help address declining birth rates, labour shortages, pressure on pension systems, but opponents argue that uncontrolled migration places excessive pressure on housing, public services and social cohesion. Note the last point, social cohesion. Over the last few years, there's been a surge of right-wing support for the mass migration of North African and mainly Islamic migrants into Europe. This debate is not disappearing now. It is becoming one of Europe's defining political issues. So what happens next? There are several possible outcomes. Scenario 1, rapid de-escalation. Spain and Morocco cooperate, returns increase, security improves, the crisis fades. This has happened before, and I believe scenario 1 seems the most plausible. Scenario 2 is continued pressure. There'll be more migrant attempted crossings. Ceuta's resources remain stretched. Political pressure increases in Madrid and Brussels. And scenario 3 is a wider migration debate in Europe. The biggest impact may not be in Ceuta itself, it may be political. Across Europe, migration is increasingly influencing elections and reshaping debates about borders, nationalism, labour markets and social policy. The question Europe faces is not simply, should migration exist? Migration has always existed. The real question is, how can Europe manage migration in a way that balances economic needs, humanitarian responsibilities, and border security? So, where are we now and where do we go? The images from Ceuta are powerful because they represent something bigger than one border crossing. They represent the collision between two realities, a Europe facing aging populations and labour shortages, and a neighbouring region where millions of people are searching for better opportunities. Between those two realities sits a small Spanish city in Africa, Ceuta, a place that has become one of the world's most visible symbols of the migration challenge. The debate will continue, the mock crossings will continue, but one thing is clear: the migration question is not going away, and how Europe responds may shape its political landscape for decades. If you found this analysis useful, subscribe for more deep dives into the geopolitical events shaping our world. Thank you.